Hey, I'm CJ Lou. Welcome to the Fire It Up with CJ show. Today we have a fantastic show. We have Swami Asha, who is a renowned spiritual teacher, and she's also the head of the Palo Alto Ananda group. And so we're going to be talking about one of these spiritual communities, but I assume it's very similar to the other. There's 8 other Ananda communities located internationally. There's one in Sacramento, Portland, Seattle. There's 2 in India, and then one in Assisi, Italy, of all places. So we're going to find out from Asha about what it's like living in the spiritual community that Swami Kriyananda, did I pronounce it right?
You got it right. Very good.
It was one of his visions and ways of expressing his homage to, Yogananda. How do I pronounce Yogananda's name?
Paramhansa.
Paramhansa Yogananda.
But that's his title. Yogananda is his name. So
is his name. Okay, good.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, so welcome.
Thank you. I'm very happy to be here. Delighted to be here.
Yeah, so tell me about what a spiritual community really is. What does that mean to live in a spiritual community?
Oh, that's a good question. A spiritual community is an intentional gathering of people who share high ideals. A community, a spiritual community, obviously, is that the fundamental unifying principle of such a community is that people want to grow closer to a greater reality and to base their lives on principles that they feel transcend the ordinary, everyday concerns. It doesn't mean that we turn our back on those concerns, but that we approach them with an understanding that they're a means to an end rather than an end in themselves.
Now, how does one join a spiritual community? I assume there's no hazing, but there may be. But I assume that you have to. Do you have to agree to a certain? And are you tested? How is one entered into a community like yours?
Now, of course, we're talking about Ananda, which is the communities I've been part of since 1971.
Yes.
A founding figure in 2 of them and had played a role in several of the others. In our community, it's almost like if you want to be here, you can be here. It's a very specific vibration. We're dedicated to the teachings of Paramhansa Yogananda. Our founder, Swami Kriyananda, he just passed away just almost exactly a year ago, but his energy, it was such a specific way of life, and I don't mean a narrow way of life, but we're all united by our practice of meditation, our devotion to this particular line of gurus, and everything just flowed from that. And so the way people would become members is by first coming to visit, then coming for a longer but temporary stay, and almost always, if it felt right to you, it felt right to everyone else. And not much more formality than that is needed. We love it, but not everyone does.
Yeah.
If it doesn't suit them, they don't love it, and they don't want to be there. So it hasn't really been a complicated issue, even in all these years.
All right, we just had a question on the chat asking if you were a nun.
I'm a Swami, but I'm a Naya Swami. Naya Swami is part of a new Swami order. In 2009, Swami Kriyananda, who was a member of the traditional Swami order dressed in orange, which everyone's familiar with, he felt that the time had come to revitalize that in light of the way life is now. And our communities are not monastic communities, although we have monks and nuns, but it's also for householders, for married couples, for people who are raising families. That's part of the new picture of new spirituality. People don't want to leave ordinary life behind. They want to spiritualize what they're doing. And so one of the revolutions that Swami introduced with the Naya, new Swami order, was that you could be married couples and not have to renounce your relationship in order to be Swamis.
Oh.
So as it happens, my husband and I became Swamis together.
Oh, wow.
And so we're both in this order. We've both accepted vows that are, to me, they seem like the natural way of life. To others, they might seem like a challenge, but after all, I've been doing this a long time.
Out of curiosity, what are the vows? Are the vows that you have to believe in to be a Swami different than what you have to believe in to be a community member, or are they the same?
I would say it's gradations of commitment and style of commitment. I wouldn't put it so much that some are better than others. It's some people are inspired by certain attitudes. And the essence of the Swami vow, this is Swami Kriyananda's skill, is that he doesn't make it like you do this in the morning and this in the afternoon and that at night.
Right.
And it's more like your attitude. And to be a Nayaswami is to really say, I've had a lot of incarnations. I've experienced a lot of stuff, and I'm kind of done. Now, I would really just like to concentrate on my relationship with God and make everything I do about that.
Yeah. Wow. Okay, so when did you choose to have a relationship with God? Someone asked, and the chat was asking, well, how do you choose to do this or follow this lifestyle?
Well, my impulse from even my earliest memories, really literally as a child, I just always wanted to be happy. And it seemed obvious to me that that was the only thing that really mattered, that no matter what else you did, if you weren't happy, how would it serve you? And in the world that I grew up in, which is, I grew up in Texas and in California in a sort of secular Jewish family. Everybody was really smart, wanted me to be educated, to be successful, but nobody ever talked to me about happiness. They just told me what to do externally, and they seemed vaguely to think that that might make me happy, but it just didn't work for me. I've had a lot of incarnations, and I could see the flaw in that one.
Yeah, exactly. I love that you've had so many incarnations. You're like, I just want to be with God. That's your final journey.
But I didn't know that I wanted to be with God. I knew I wanted to be happy. And I gradually began to understand that it's all about consciousness. That all we ever experience is what's inside our head. And when I met Swami Kriyananda in 1969, I was 22.
Wow.
And this was a happy man.
Well, I just got chills. It must have been a happy moment. I just got chills all over my body when you mentioned that. Wow. Okay, so he was a happy man. And he seems like a peaceful man. Every video I've seen of him, he's totally inside in his body and peaceful.
He was always like that. I knew him very well and saw him in many different settings for many years, 40 years of it. He was always that way.
Yeah.
He knew what to do with his consciousness. And then it became about God. It became about Kriya Yoga. It became about having a guru. But none of that, it didn't start there for me. It started there for somebody, please talk to me about happiness.
Ah. Interesting. All right, so let's go back a little bit to what you were talking about with the community, because you said it's not for everyone.
Yeah.
In what cases what kind of person thrives in kind of Ananda, a community like Ananda? It's not.
Well, I have to say there are not a lot of communities like Ananda. I wish there were a lot, but let's say a spiritual community.
Spiritual community.
People who like to drink and take drugs and carouse and go out and listen to loud, activating music, we're very peaceful. We're more inward. People have to, the essential reality of the life that we live is understanding that everything begins inside of you. And that it's all about your own consciousness and your own attitudes. And so people have to understand that the inner reality comes first and the way it manifests comes afterwards. If you're still thinking that if I can just get everything external organized, then I'll feel good inside, then our life doesn't make any sense.
Right.
And it's not attractive.
But here's the thing that's so interesting, because a lot of what the community is about external things too, right? It's about being in community with other people and participating in the community as well. So isn't there an external piece as well?
Well, but the external, in the movie Finding Happiness, which is a movie we just released about our life, the leaders of our community, Swami Kriyananda's successor, they're asked the question, you're still people, what do you do about conflicts? And the answer given is very simple. Meditation smooths the waters in every respect. So if people meditate regularly, the way they relate to the world becomes different. And one of the things about Ananda specifically, which really is a very real contribution, is that we're out there pitching like everybody else. We're having relationships, falling in love, raising kids, earning money, building a house, just having life. But it starts with being in harmony with a greater reality. And if you're in harmony with the greater reality, then what does all of this look like?
Mm-hmm.
Because we're not world renouncing. We're not retired from the world. We do live in our own, among our friends, but I live in Palo Alto, California. Our temple is across the street from Stanford University. I'm right in
Oh
the
my
middle.
goodness.
I'm right in
Wow.
the middle of Silicon Valley, and
Wow.
our community is it's a little apartment complex just right in the middle of this area, and we are constantly interacting with the world that everyone else lives in, and our temple is full of people who do not live in our community but draw from the example and the experience of it to work in everything that you do in Silicon Valley from
Wow.
from the inside out.
I'm kind of I've been to San Francisco a couple times
Uh-huh.
recently, and the buzz and excitement and the chaos that you're talking about is abounding over there. So
It's bounding.
I'm kind of curious what it means for a person in the Silicon Valley to go to Ananda. So is it a refuge for them? Do they try to live that life when they're in their work life afterwards?
Well, see, this is the clarity that's required here is that this is a seamless whole. It's everything emanates from what your own inner vibration is. If it's stressed, if it's peaceful, if it's lonely, if it's connected, if it's frightened, if it's confident. I mean, those are just obvious.
Right.
The principles of self-realization, of which meditation is a part, but there's much more.
Hmm.
Who am I? Where does my happiness come from?
Yeah.
How much control do I have over my own destiny? You answer those questions and add to that practices that enable you to take some conscious control over those realities, and then go out and be Steve Jobs if you want to be.
Right.
So just
Right.
do anything you want, but it's altogether different then.
Mm. So, what are some of those practices? So, if I were a typical day in the life of a person, a resident in your community, which it sounds like is a normal life, right? But how does spirituality integrate within that life?
Well, almost everyone who's part of Ananda meditates. Ideally, everyone meditates morning and night
Hmm.
from 5 minutes to 2 hours, depending on what kind of life you have.
Right.
Some people do yoga postures. We also have another set of exercises called energization, which people do. I mean, that's one part of it. And the other part of it is a sense of relationship to a greater reality, that I am always part of a much bigger story than just my little ego preferences.
And how does one get reminded of that? Because I'll read it in a book. I'm like, oh yes, that's right, that's right. I mean, how when you're living in community, do you have sermons? Do you have, or does someone walk by you and say, "Oh, are you in your inner world?" Like, what happens to remind people and get them grounded in that place? I know you have meditation that happens in the morning and the evening, but what else do you do to help support?
I would call it's a gradual realization. And
Okay.
spiritual practice, there's an actual word for it in Sanskrit. The word is smriti.
Uh huh.
It's a process of remembering.
Hmm.
And remembering and forgetting pretty much, and then remembering again, pretty much defines spiritual life. I get sucked out of my center, and suddenly I'm anxious and nervous. I perceive I'm anxious and nervous. I use the breath. I use affirmations. I use my sense of inner relationship. I use prayer. I use the friendship of my spiritually minded friends
Right.
to just help me remember that I don't have to be bounced about like a leaf in the wind. I actually can stand in the trunk of the tree, so to speak, and even if I spread my branches way out, I don't have to live in the far edge of my branches. I can always be standing in the trunk of the tree, so to speak.
And so is it, so you were saying you see your friends or you have various practices. Is it just even seeing a person gives you a touch point that says, oh,
Absolutely.
yes, I remember. And you're around that energy of other people who are kind of have like a supportive cocoon. So even if you fly out of your center, you can get anchored back into that tree
Absolutely.
that you're talking about.
And we have Sunday morning gatherings. We have weeknight classes. We have webinars online. We have, of course, books and friendship. People who live in community see each other.
Yeah.
call your friends and it's just like, it's friendship,
Yeah.
but it's friendship among people who are trying to accomplish the same thing in the same way.
Right.
And so naturally, when you're agitated or you're feeling off center, you get the advice that a person is able to give you. And if you're trying to come back to center, and you have many good friends in your life who are also trying to do that, just huddling up to them helps. You know, just let me get close to your aura, and then mine will calm down.
That is so true, isn't it? Because
Yeah.
I've recently had a bunch of spiritual friends, and it makes a difference when you just know that that support is around. Even a small text from that person. I swear, when my energy is vibrating at some wacky level, I'll get texts from friends of mine. Hey, how are you doing? Do you want to get together for lunch? And I thought, well, I wonder if I was sending out a distress signal, and they
Uh-huh.
picked it up, and they were energetically just, huddling around me virtually, but, by sending me a text. So I can definitely see how that would be hugely supportive to have that around you all the time.
And what you're just saying is, you have experienced that you are part of a greater reality.
Yeah.
Even though you appear to be solitary, you realize that you're not,
Yeah.
and that there's always these links. And so when we spirit, going back to the first question, when we consciously form links with other spiritually minded people and make with them a community, whether it's a physical community, a virtual community, or as we have here, we have in Palo Alto, where I'm speaking from, we have a residential community where not quite 100 of us live together. A couple of miles away in a separate place, but close by, we have a temple, and many more people come and go from the temple. And so we're just constantly interacting. And so you can't get really far away from your center if you just keep circulating back in to where that center is vibrating very strongly.
Mm-hmm.
And because, even though I love living where I live,
Yeah.
People are so dynamic, intelligent, creative, everything. It's a great place.
Yeah.
It is materialistic to the max.
Yes.
And I don't just mean money oriented, but because people are so good at what they do here, they're totally persuaded that if they can just get it right, get the right house, the right job, the right school for the kids, then everything is going to follow.
Right.
And they're so good at manifesting, they're really trying hard to prove that happiness comes from the outside.
Yeah.
But it doesn't.
Yeah.
But those are perfect people. Those are perfect people to add in.
Yeah, absolutely. Like in some ways, what's so interesting is that you're on the external perimeter of these people who are on the inside, having so much misunderstanding that it's really about going on the inside. And here you are in the periphery, kind of like around them. So when they come to that realization, they can just walk across the street over to your place.
That is precisely and exactly. I've been here for 25 years, and that's exactly why Swami Kriyananda sent us, my husband and I, sent us here.
Yeah.
It is a perfect place for Ananda, because when people are ready, they'll get it. And they'll
walk across the street from Stanford University over to your place. Exactly. All right. So because you were saying is communal living isn't for everybody, and for folks that aren't, they can always come to the temple. But what which people thrive in communities and which people have more challenges?
I think, let's see, people who thrive in community are people who realize, one, that spiritual life, however you define it, is really important. It's just like, I've got to make this a priority. And they really know it's a priority. That's the number one. So it's a real priority for them. And that they've failed enough times to realize, I need help.
Yes.
If you still think, I can just do this all by myself, after all, it's just my own personal relationship with myself. I can manage. Right. I don't need you. What's the point of community?
Right. Right.
But those who recognize that it's a vital priority and they need help and are really willing and able to open up to other people's realities, to both to give and to receive.
Right.
Because, of course, community is a relationship, and you have to want that relationship. You can't just move in because I want, these things, but I'm not going to really participate.
Right.
But people learn slowly.
Yeah.
It in this world, to protect yourself is a very smart move much of the time.
Yeah. Yeah.
And yeah,
So let's go into the work part, because you were talking earlier that you said, people, there's a school on the community that goes all the way to college, right? From finding happiness, it seems like it goes all the way to college. Is that right?
not all in one place, but yes,
Yeah, yeah. But you can get educated
yeah,
the Ananda way and those values all the
all
way up
the way
to
to college.
college.
Yes,
That's just fascinating. And then I noticed from the video that there's people who have a whole bunch of different work projects, and that when I was reading through your website, you can either find a job within the community, like maybe you
right.
serve food, or you're part of, the very, like you're becoming the manager of the Palo Alto.
Yes.
So you have various jobs like that, but then people also have jobs outside of the community.
Oh yeah, it's a very the nature of Ananda is extremely individualistic. We're a marvelous uh, paradox between personal responsibility, personal freedom, personal self-expression, and community. It just works better like that,
Yeah.
because then all the cooperation is voluntary, because you realize that it's of benefit to you to participate in that way.
Mm-hmm.
And everybody has a different destiny. You can't just cookie cutter. I mean, the
Right.
very nature of the spiritual path is that it has to come from you.
Mm-hmm.
So some people do much better if they can follow their independent, artistic, or financial, or intellectual pursuits. Others just really don't want to really just want to enter into the core of it and be doing just one kind of work,
Mm-hmm.
one unified reality. Of course, some people are humble, some are leaders.
Right.
So we don't really have a system beyond, well, hello, so what are you going to do?
I love it that, and isn't that so rare, because in so many spiritual communities it's not that way. You have to kind of fit into the program and follow the rules, and where yours sounds so individualistic, which I think is really a smart thing to do.
Well, it ends up, I mean, when you come, there's definitely an Ananda culture.
Yeah.
There's definitely sort of, you're here for a while and you realize you're in Ananda country.
Yeah.
But we all get there. This is Swami Kriyananda's leadership. He was just a genius
Mm-hmm.
in terms of recognizing the appropriate balance between individual initiative, community support, and true spirituality must be self-motivated and self-generated.
Mm-hmm.
Then the community is a great asset to that commitment. That's why when you said what's needed first, and what's needed first is understanding this is my priority, and
Mm-hmm.
and I need help.
Right.
And after that, we all individually try to get in tune with a vibration, the higher vibration of the path we're following, which is a specific line of gurus and practices. But once we individually get in tune with that, we don't have to work hard to be in tune with the rest of it.
Right. Right. That would make sense. So,
Yeah.
so let me talk more about logistics. So if I would like to sign up to be part of this community, now from what I would read from your website, I could rent a place, and I can't figure out the whole housing situation. And there's like some dues that you have to pay. Is it like the Mormons? You have to give 20% of your income. What's the whole money piece of it? Because it's got to be there, right? For you
Oh
to
yes, of course.
yeah.
Everything always money is always a part of everything.
Yeah.
Um, you see, it depends on where you start. If you're in the Silicon Valley, you start coming to our temple. If you want to move into our community, we're just an apartment community.
Right.
You can rent apartments like you rent them anywhere else in this area, and we don't have a very big filter,
Right.
to rent an apartment. It's a non-lease basis. People try it out.
Right.
If you go to one of our rural communities, Laurelwood near Portland, Ananda Village near Nevada City, Assisi in Grass Valley, Assisi in Italy, Ananda Village near Grass Valley, our community in Pune, where they're land-based
Right.
and more completely closed in. We're just dropped in the middle. They're their own universes.
Ah.
And
Okay.
start as a visitor. You go to one of their visitors programs, and you just sort of see how it feels. And then it just unfolds step by step. And yes, eventually, if you get a house, you usually have to rent it. It costs money to rent. We all just work together to make it happen.
Yeah.
But you can't read the rule book first. The first thing is, oh, you're interested. Why don't you come and hang out for a while?
Yeah, so you visit first and then you
Or,
decide afterwards because you'll know. I
you
think
know,
probably like you're saying, you kind of energetically know. You'll know whether you feel comfortable, and if you feel comfortable, probably the other
the
parties,
other half
yeah,
feels.
you guys are feel comfortable too.
And the money and the money living is completely different in every place. Ananda has like I guess 9 communities, and we're all autonomous.
Oh,
We're united by our shared spiritual aspirations, and we are definitely a family.
yeah.
But we're not a big institution. Swami Kriyananda was very emphatic about. I mean, his way of leading is that the people most closely involved should take responsibility for what they're doing.
Right.
So every community is financially independent, legally independent, and we're all very similar, but not quite.
Yeah. Interesting. So
Uh-huh.
interesting. So then, I'm just so that threw me for a loop. Okay, for some reason I thought it was centrally organized, but it's not. So you're individually organized,
No,
and
no,
then so are
true.
so like how someone signs up or is part of the community is dependent on each of the communities. So some
Exactly.
people may have a certain fee. Some people may actually take a percentage of your income. Some people may have a sliding scale. Like, is it all
Yeah.
varied depending?
Nobody takes a percentage of your income
Okay,
because if you want to get, I mean, we encourage people to tithe.
right.
Everybody encourages it because it's a very, very good spiritual practice to do so.
Yes.
It helps you to do
Yes.
that. And of
Yes.
course, it helps the entities. The bills have to be paid, but everything has to be freely given because you understand why you're doing it. Or
Hmm.
sooner or later, it just collapses. And
Yeah. Yeah.
it can hold. It looks like it can hold together, but it can't really.
Yeah. So interesting. Okay, so what would you want people to know that the video of finding or movie Finding Happiness didn't really hit upon that in our last closing minutes? Do you want folks to know about the Nanda community that wasn't covered in the movie?
Fine. Let's see. You know, well, I'm so fond of the movie Finding Happiness. I think we did a great job of covering almost anything. But when we were making that movie, we made this decision. It is impossible even to give a fraction of what Ananda really is in that movie. So we just more or less, not randomly, but selected things that we thought would interest people. And our only intention there was to make them want more.
Mm, mm,
And in the age of the internet, you just start Googling, and pretty soon you've found where you want to go.
yeah.
I think the answer, what I really would like people to know, which I think is in the movie, is happiness is a way of life and it's a choice. And wherever you are, you can have more of it if
Hmm.
it's a priority to you. And
Right.
over the years of the 40 years that we've been doing Ananda, we got a lot of time to experiment, and um, we've hit upon some pretty good solutions
Yeah. I
that
agree.
are quite portable.
Yeah.
They're manifested on location, but they can be transferred and used anywhere.
Mm, mm. And you know what's amazing about the movie is that people literally glow in the movie. You
Yeah.
probably, I mean, I don't know if you see it or not because you're around it all the time, but people were just glowing
Yeah.
with life, which I thought was one of the best testaments of the
Well,
movie.
I was really, really involved in the making of the
Yeah,
movie, and when I saw it, I was amazed because Anand is very complicated and very subtle.
yeah.
And when I saw the movie, even the first time, the director's cut in the screening room, this was my exact response. Oh my gosh, we did it! There it is.
And how can folks find the movie? Is it? I got a special invitation to see it, but do folks can they rent it and
You you can rent it, and now it's available on the internet through something called Yekra, Yekra,
okay.
which is a rental system. You can buy it or rent it through Amazon. You can buy it from Ananda proper. If you do Finding Happiness the movie or Finding Happiness movie,
Right.
you'll come to it really fast. Or even just Ananda movie, you'll come to it. You can rent it, you can buy it, you can download it, you can stream it, all the ways that you can normally get movies now.
Wonderful. What a wonderful time talking to you. You're the most down. You're just so down to earth. I don't know what I was expecting when I was going to talk to a Swami. I wasn't sure if you're going to have a tur. I didn't know what to expect. That you're going to be orange or, and you're so down to earth and wonderful. And your heart and calmness is just present throughout this whole thing. I greatly appreciate you taking the time.
It's just really been fun meeting you.
Yes,
Soul sisters over the internet.
yes.
Great
Big
joy.
hug to you, soul sister.
And the same to you. All right.
All right. Thank you so much for being here. Hey, thank you so much for listening to the Fire It Up with CJ show. I hope you enjoyed the show and that you learned something or found something that you'd like to try out. It means so much to me that you're listening to the show and love your support in any way by giving me comments below or to subscribe to the show or share the show with friends. Thank you again for your support. Love and blessings.